All right, Council, it's 3:30. I will call this special meeting Thursday, March 10th, 20 order. Before I read the land acknowledgement, I advise Council and staff and our that I had an unfortunate telephone call yesterday. Dixon advised me that Jennifer McEwen had passed away. Jennifer was our former chair of on the Heritage. Our condolences, family, friends, and us. Great contribution. That being said, I will read the land acknowledgement. For more than 15,000 years, First Nations walked upon and cared for the lands we now call home. Anishinaabek, Haudenosaunee, Ojibwe, and many others, friends, families, and communities the way we are today. The Town of Collingwood acknowledges the Lake Simcoe Haudenosaunee Treaty and the relationship it establishes with original inhabitants of the island. Acknowledge the reality of our shared history and the current contributions of Indigenous community. Continue empowering expressions of pride amongst all of the diverse stakeholders in the area. Better, continue to recognize, learn, and grow friendship and community nation. With that, I will look for a motion to adopt the agenda, and the motion reads that the content of the special council agenda for March 10, 2020 be adopted as presented. Seconder, please. Madigan, Councillor Doherty. All in favor? And you have a question?
No.
Carried unanimously. Thank you. Declarations of pecuniary interest. Are there any declarations?
Sorry, my apologies. Thank you. With regards to agenda item number 6, Councillor Vacancy, I'm just making the following non-disqualifying conflict, and it relates when there were 14 names that came to the list and identified those that had made financial contribution. One such name on the list.
Deputy Mayor. Any other declarations? Doherty?
Thank you, Worship. Deputy Mayor's addition.
Out. Councillor Madigan. Go ahead, Councillor.
No.
Probably for the record, we
I have a non-disqualifying interest.
Madigan. Thank you.
Sorry, thank you very much. I did not have the mic close to my, so for anybody that listened, I also share the same as my 3 previous colleagues that have made a contribution.
Much. And I also declaring a non-1 candidates. Look to Clerk Almas because I had reached out to our integrity committee, perhaps just upshot of.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship. This was brought to my attention by one of members of council, so I did reach out to our integrity commissioner. Had a conversation regarding previous campaign contributors or acquaintances, and the commissioner member would have a non-disqualifying interest, and that should be publicly. If it was more than a non-disqualifying interest, of council would have to else all the voting happen election procedure.
Very much. None. On to item 4, in-camera session. Resolution follows. Whereas the clerk hereby concurs the camera session reviewed, matters are authorized under the exception provisions, conduct a session in accordance with the Municipal Act prior to proceeding session. Therefore, be it resolved that this council proceeds in camera in order to address a matter pertaining to 1, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting a town or local board. A. 2, the receiving of advice that is subject to client privilege, including necessary for that. A. And 3, petition plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to apply to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board, and that is A. And A is LT deal relating to authority. Herman, your comments on all the vote, all in favor? Unanimously. And clerk, clarify.
That's correct. We will ensure that there is posting on our live feed, showing that council, and we'll move to Braniff room for that in-camera discussion, return here to rise and
That. Thank you. All right, council, I will call us back into open session and look for a motion to rise from in camera at 3:51 p.m. Moved by Councillor Jeffrey, seconded by Councillor Madigan. All in favor? That is carried unanimously. Thank you. And that brings us then to item 5.1. There's notices of motion for reconsideration regarding the popular Regional Health and Wellness Village project and the ministerial zoning order request. I will pass it over to the Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Saunderson. So I guess procedurally, we were looking for an opportunity to provide notice for to waive, and then the introduction of the notice of motion.
First, I think we need a motion to reconsider, since this issue was defeated on Monday night.
Okay.
So we need a notice of motion to reconsider. Clerk Almas?
certainly sorry that the motion on Monday evening was defeated, and it was the procedural motion on putting the original notice that Deputy Mayor had requested to come on to a special meeting when it can only go on to a regular meeting. So these motions can be approved without reconsideration as is presented on the agenda today.
Oh, okay. Thank you for that clarification. You were correct, Deputy Mayor. I'll pass it back to you.
Okay, so if I could table the following notice to waive, that council hear and waive the procedural bylaw requirements for notice of motion to consider direction regarding the request for council endorsement of the ministerial zoning request from Live, Work, Learn, Play Incorporated.
And that's seconded by Councillor Berman. We don't, okay, there's no discussion on it, but Councillor Berman, go ahead.
Thank you. I was just going to ask for a recorded vote, if I could, please.
All right, thank you. And so we've got, yes. So right now, Councillor, we are voting on waiving the procedural requirement to have notice of motion. So right now, the notice of motion was returnable on March 21st, and we are proposing to waive that notice to deal with the motion today. And so with that being said, I'll pass over to Clerk Almas to call the vote.
Certainly, thank you, Your Worship. All those in favor of the motion, please raise your yes cards. Thank you. All those opposed, please raise your no card. One opposed. Thank you. Motion is carried.
All right, and then that brings us then to the motion itself, and I'll pass it back to the Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. So I'd like to introduce the following, and I'll just read it out as it is in the agenda. Whereas Live Work Play, as is where Live Work Play Incorporated presented a development proposal to Strategic Initiatives Standing Committee on March the 7th, 2022 for their Poplar Regional Health and Wellness Village project to request endorsement from the Town of Collingwood for a ministerial zoning order. And whereas the proponents have confirmed that they will compensate the Town of Collingwood to retain a consultant to undertake a review of the proposal to eliminate the need to reprioritize or significantly delay key projects currently led by planning services. And whereas the consultants most appropriately qualified to undertake such a review on behalf of the Town of Collingwood is Planning Partnership Incorporated and Urban Metrics, the consultants leading the official plan updates. And whereas the consultants, as indicated to staff, a review would only delay the work of the official plan by approximately 3 to 4 weeks if council wishes to prioritize the consideration of a ministerial zoning order for the regional health and wellness development proposal. Now, therefore, be it resolved that council of the Corporation of the Town of Collingwood herein request that Planning Partnerships Incorporated and Urban Metrics be retained to undertake a review of the Poplar Regional Health and Wellness Village project proposal and potential processes and report back to council on their findings prior to council considering whether an endorsement is recommended or other options. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I get seconder, Councillor Berman? Deputy Mayor, do you want to speak to it first?
Sure. And I appreciate the opportunity to bring this back to the table after the discussion Monday evening, and in particular the presentation from the proponent. I think that there are a couple of things that I would just very briefly like to highlight. One is that I am not trying to circumvent or to endorse something that was only presented to this body on Monday evening. Two would be that after what transpired Monday night took place, I had an opportunity at the request of our planning staff to meet to discuss what potentially we would bring to the table in the form of a motion. And at that meeting, it was conveyed to me that there had been outreach on behalf of the proponent to pay for works that would be done as outlined in this motion, and therefore we as a municipality would not be on the hook for additional costs as it relates to reviewing this particular proposal. And I think that most importantly, and something that we've all witnessed, is that the work that has been done to date by the two entities that have been retained by the municipality to look at our official plan update have been doing an excellent job, and I think that they have our vote of confidence in the sense that they can, in a very timely fashion, offer a peer review that would then give us an opportunity to make an educated decision as to whether or not this is a project that we want to endorse from the municipality standpoint. And the last thing I would just like to mention, and that would be that it is clear, whether it was clear or not on Monday evening, this is a vision that's being brought forward by a proponent who owns private lands within the Town of Collingwood, and at some point would like to move forward with some type of development. And the process of potentially going to Queen's Park for a private ministerial zoning order has already been undertaken. That's my understanding. So therefore, in some respects, I view it that we've been invited to the dance. We haven't determined whether or not we wish to actually walk out onto the floor and dance. But I think it's important that we be a part of the discussion and be a part of in the room, while this is taking place. And the fact that this will only push back the works that are being done on the OP for a period of maybe 3 to 4 weeks. 2, that the costs will be covered by the proponent, and 3, that it really puts us in a position as a council to look at this, significant development from an educated standpoint is worth taking a look at. And I would hope that the body here today would support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Council, other questions or comments? Councillor Berman, and then Councillor Hamlin.
Thank you, Mayor Saunderson. I had said, I think I said this, at least in my head, on Monday night, that it didn't so much matter what the wording was, is that I felt that the Deputy Mayor's motion was just to allow us to get some more information before we actually went to the next level of consideration. So this is pretty much what I expected to see, except I'm really encouraged that there's been these conversations already in the 3 days about the compensation and the timeline, and that it wouldn't delay the official plan that much. So I'll support it as I did the other night, and I'll also ask for a recorded vote on this one as well if I could. Thank you.
Thank you, duly noted. Council, just make sure you speak into your microphones so our public can hear us. Councillor Hamlin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I spent a lot of time thinking about this project because it is a vision that, if it came to pass, wouldn't it be great? But it is a vision right now, and an MZO is the flavor of the month if you're a developer, and there's many municipalities right now in the province that are being courted by developers to bypass our planning process and our community input to get these kind of approvals in place. I don't know that I'm per se against an MZO, but I am very adamant that this council, which has had more than sufficient lessons in transparency, follow every kind of transparent rule as we walk through this process. MZOs have been shown to be a way, and the province has encouraged them to cut red tape. But in my view, red tape does not take away other important principles that we have to, in my view, follow. That includes community input, and community input is from our residential community and our developer community. And it also includes some attention to the planning process as has been set up. MZOs are a direct route to a building permit without looking at an official plan, perhaps without a site plan, without the provincial policy statements, without the Conservation Authority being able to step in and say no. It is a very draconian message or method of getting to a development approval. I have heard the Deputy Mayor say we want to be invited to the dance, and I appreciate that, but Premier Ford has been quite clear that the municipality has to ask the province to implement an MZO before it will go ahead. So our decision on this ultimately will be key on whether this goes forward. So if this was to go, in terms of potential processes that our consultants would look at, the following would be very important to me. Number one, how can we be assured that our community will be fully consulted? How can we ensure that the important planning policies that other developers are required to follow will be applied? Number three, how can we be guaranteed that all of the affordable housing that this proposal contemplates will be provided? They call it workforce housing. I'm so happy with that concept, but it's a significant part of this proposal. It forms about half of the square footage that's being proposed. And if we're going to have a significant component of housing here, in my view, we need to know what are the guarantees that this is going to be happening. The next point, if I could make, would be how can we be assured that we will have at least site plan control? Can we ask the province to give us at least site plan control? And lastly, can we have built into this zoning order that would be asked for from the government, can we have built into it the protections we would have in a normal zoning bylaw? This will ultimately, if approved, become a zoning bylaw for this town. Can we be assured that we will get specific land uses identified for specific parcels on this property? Can we be assured there will be phasing to ensure that we get more than just housing on this property? Can we be assured that there will be appropriate allocation of servicing that does not leapfrog over other parcels in our community? In my view, Mr. Mayor, if all of these things could be met, I would be happy to support this motion. I, for myself, need these answers, and as I say, the transparency of having an MZO is typically lacking, and I think it behooves us as a council in particular, having been through what we've been through, to make sure our community does not see us just giving a rubber stamp to any landowner in this province to run to the province and get the kind of approvals it wants without any input from us. I so appreciate what Mr. DePoche is bringing to the table here. I know he wants a legacy project, and I think this is an excellent project. But as a community, we need our own safeguards. I see that the hospital is a critical component of this proposal. As we know, the province has not yet approved the hospital to go to the Poplar site. Nevertheless, between the wellness hospital and clinics, I believe it's about a third of the project. So there's a lot of moving parts on this. I'm prepared to support this motion at this time with all of these caveats. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hamlin. And I think just a particular point of fact, the town's already requested an MZO for the hospital, so the project in its current iteration doesn't include the hospital. It has a wellness facility. But I know staff was involved in the drafting of this motion. I'm going to look to staff to make sure that the motion in its current terms are broad enough to address the issues that Councillor Hamlin has just raised.
Thank you, Your Worship. Right now, how the resolution is worded, and I would defer to our Director of Planning Services, or our CAO, is that our current Planning Partnership, Inc. and Urban Metrics would undertake a review of the development proposal. I'm not sure that the report that's being provided back within the 2 to 3 weeks that they're able to undertake this would include the confirmations on the protections that Councillor Hamlin noted. So I would defer to probably Director Valentine.
Okay. Director, oh, sorry. It's too tiny up there. So go ahead, please, Director Valentine.
Thank you, Your Worship, and Clerk Almas. And indeed, the resolution is quite broad, but the timeline is not. So in terms of what can be accomplished within that 3 to 4 week time frame, the initial discussions that we've had with Planning Partnership and Urban Metrics was sort of those 20,000 foot level questions that we had been asking previously in the discussion on Monday night. Is this conversion a net positive impact to the town of Collingwood? And they may be able to make comments on desirable public consultation and potentially additional documentation or peer reviews that may be of merit for council to have in hand before they make a decision. I'm not certain within that time period and the budget quoted, they could address all of Councillor Hamlin's matters, but we can certainly put those before the partnership and see what they can accomplish within the 3 to 4 week timeline.
Thank you. Councillor Hamlin?
That's fine at this stage, Mr. Mayor. I don't want to hold it up just on a technicality, so to speak. I'd like to see this happen, but with all the qualifications I mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Jeffrey, go ahead, and then Councillor McLeod.
So thank you, Mayor Saunderson. So I'm fully in agreement with the motion as worded to proceed. And my assumption is, and I hope it's safe, that I don't need another councillor to list all the things that we need to be worrying about as a council and making our decision go forward. I'm really hoping the consultants we're hiring would be able to advise us on all the matters of caution. And I think I like the word that Director Valentine has referred to, the net positive. But my assumption is, as far as also receiving an education in terms of the MZOs, that they will have us well informed as to the decision we're making in this case. So, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McLeod?
Thank you. I too have concerns about this, as I expressed last week, and I feel as though I would like to see some amendments to the final paragraph of this if it would assist the comfort of the council, including some of the items that Councillor Hamlin has delineated, as well as the concern that I have about whether our fairness monitor has had a look at this procurement. So through you, Mr. Mayor, to either the CAO or our clerk, has our fairness monitor had a look at this at this motion?
I'll look to staff. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Worship. To address Councillor McLeod's motion, no, this is not. This is basically a non-standard procurement, as it would take too long for a consultant that is not aware of our current official plan priorities and capacities and information. I believe that was the recommendation of Director Valentine, that if we were to proceed under this timeline, that it would be best to utilize this firm.
Councillor?
Thank you. So to clarify, this was a recommendation from staff. This is that we use these two. I just wanted to be absolutely sure that I heard you correctly.
I
Clerk
believe so.
Cummins? CAO?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Councillor McLeod. Yes, if it is the wish of council to have a relatively quick turnaround, as is set out in this this motion, proposed motion, then using the consultant that is up to date on some of the more complex technical matters related to jobs produced, for example, and then the results of the use of the space, they would be the right people to take on the work. And there are non-standard procurement provisions that are set out in our bylaw that would enable this and would be strongly supported by this transparent vote should it be endorsed by council.
Thank you so much. That satisfies me on that point. And so, what I would like to be sure that it's not just being left with staff, but that we actually put in the final paragraph a few of the items. For example, so after the words proposal and potential processes, I would like to see something added to the effect of and the town's ability to enforce promises made and public consultation in that sentence. And so I would probably need a seconder. I definitely need a seconder for adding those two items to the list.
I see a seconder with Councillor Jeffrey. I heard those considerations from Councillor Hamlin, and I think staff indicated they thought it was broad enough to include that, but I don't have a problem putting it on the floor. So go ahead, Councillor Jeffrey.
Thank you, Mayor Saunderson. I don't either. But I just, when we start listing things, I get nervous that we're leaving things out. So I also like including but not limited to.
Lovely. I will take that as a friendly amendment to the amendment.
All right. Can you just please read that out again so the staff can get that?
Sure. You want the entire paragraph?
No, just after processes.
Okay. Proposal and potential processes, and the addition would be, and the town's ability to enforce promises made by the proponent, as well as up to and including, but not limited to, requirements for public consultation. and report back to council on their findings.
Close enough.
With the report, I think, yeah? Yeah, okay, all right. Yes, absolutely. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
I think I understand. I'm fine with it. But just to clarify, when you say enforcement, so what we're looking to have the consultants come back to us is either you can or you cannot, correct?
Yeah, what I'm looking for is,
Ways to make sure it happens.
big promises are being made, and we're being asked to trust, and I would like trust but verify, is where I'm going with that.
All right. Councillor Hamlin.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think, for example, one of the promises around the workforce housing, it would be very difficult to get that, in my own view, enforced through the Planning Act. So I'm looking for, just for staff's assistance, can we get an agreement? What are the options available, or is it impossible to get that guaranteed? Thank you.
Yeah, I think there are other legal mechanisms, and agreements can be registered on title that run with the land, so there are other options as well, I think. Councillor Doherty.
Thank you, Your Worship. First of all, I want to be very clear that this is a bold and creative plan, and on the surface, it has great potential for our community. But I am fundamentally opposed to the process of relinquishing local planning control and due public process in order to determine the highest and best use for these lands. We are on the eve of receiving a comprehensive official plan review, which has had considerable input from the public, considerable input from very skilled planning consultants at great expense. And it seems to me that the timing at this point doesn't make much sense to me, in that we are literally looking at a few weeks. That said, I'm not comfortable with the notion of putting off our official plan review for 4 weeks in favor of a very lately arriving proposal from a developer. Other proponents were offered the opportunity at the beginning of our official plan review to make requests for specific official plan or zoning bylaw considerations at the outset. This proponent was not part of that process. And it makes me question why not. I did do some reading this afternoon. One of the, I think, very attractive components of this development is the notion of housing that may or may not be able to be delivered in good time. And the implications, because of the mixed-use component, that housing might be affordable. But the traditional authority of an MZO does not address inclusionary zoning or affordable housing. So if that is our primary objective, that immediately is not the tool. I'm also, when I hear from our planner that we would be unable to drill down to the implications to the degree which my colleagues, Councillor MacLeod and Councillor Hamlin, have requested within this time frame, causes me some concern as well, because that would be the only way by which I would be supportive of this motion. And I will end by saying that every one of these criteria for a well-balanced, designed, well-inputted, relevant development could be achieved through our own planning mechanisms, and it is not necessary for us to relinquish control to the province and to give up the input of our public.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Madigan.
Last one to speak before the vote. I want to thank Deputy Mayor Hull for bringing this back with what I consider very clear and concise directions of what we're doing to protect our community. And I also want to thank Councillor Hamlin and Councillor McLeod and Councillor Jeffrey for adding to it. I think this is an exciting time within our community, and I look forward to showing my support by raising my green yes card. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I call the vote, I will give the Deputy Mayor a last opportunity, then I'll provide my comments and we'll call the vote. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. I appreciate and I understand and I take into consideration all of the comments that have been made at the table. This is a comment through you, Mayor Saunderson, to the community as a whole. I say this with one eye over my shoulder to Clerk Almas. And you can cut me off if you feel warranted. I was part of a council between 10 and 14, as many know, and an opportunity was presented to that council for two significant assets that belonged to the community at that time. One of those assets we no longer have, and that was the airport. The point that I'm making is I think that this is something that's being driven by a developer who has a long-standing history with the community and the region and has made a presentation in an open forum. The matter that I spoke of a moment ago was never public. And secondly, the request that I am simply making today, and I take all of these points to heart, and they are valid points for consideration, and that is that we, in an open and transparent manner, ask our staff through these planning consultants to be able to give us information so that we can make an educated decision about an opportunity that has been presented to us. I'm not aware of any member, myself included, who has come to the table to advocate on behalf of this particular opportunity. I think that we, at the same time, were given some insight into what this particular developer was looking to do, and we're being asked to weigh a significant an investment and long-term plan and weigh the pros and cons, not only as it relates to the planning process in the public interest, but also going back to the conversation on Monday evening, weighing it against the priorities that have already been established by the community and this council and staff as a whole. And my hope is that in 3 to 4 weeks, when this comes back in the form of information to council, we independently will be able to digest that information and make an independent decision, and then as a collective body, as it relates to this opportunity, whether or not we feel it's in the best interest. And I feel that we've had good discussion. We are doing this in an open and transparent manner, which I am proud of, and I look forward to moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. And we've had good discussion. I think this is, Councillor Hamlin, I've quickly then, please, what's the question, Councillor?
My question is the hospital included in the proposal that has come before our council? Thank you.
No, it's not.
I heard you say that, Mr. Mayor, and that's why my question is for staff. Thank you.
Right. Well, we were all here for the presentation, and it's not included in the hospital. The hospital is not included as part of this MZO request, but I will look to Director Valentine to clarify that, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. And it's my understanding that the proposal includes a major health and wellness institutional anchor, which could be a hospital, but it could be another use of that would fit that description.
Thank you. All right, Council. So we've had a good discussion, and this is a very big, complex, and ambitious development that, if it moves forward, could really change the future of our community in terms of its lifestyle offerings, its housing, its economy. And this is something that I think deserves full attention of this council in terms of weighing the merits. And this is a fact-finding mission. We are asking council, our staff, to direct the consultants to look at this proposal and all the implications and possibly other options to pursue this. And that is being paid for by the applicant. The developer in question has had a long presence in Collingwood, has been a big supporter of our hospital, and as we know, has offered land to the hospital, which is subject to an MZO request made by this council or previous council in 2018, which the province has not yet granted. And I want to speak also to the process. I think what is going on in this council room now is a world of difference from what happened prior in the 2010 to 2014 council. And we've gone through a lot to get to this point in time. And what we're seeing today is our lobbyist registry in action. An individual associated with this project has registered as a lobbyist. That this came to council in an open session. And that we are now asking staff to pass this on to third-party experts who are our consultants who have been working on our official plan for the last 18 months, and Urban Metrics, who is familiar with this town and familiar with that property. They provided an opinion for the hospital MZO. We are doing our utmost to make sure that we have the information we need to make an informed and educated decision when this comes back to council. I wholeheartedly support this process to make sure that we do have all that information, and that when the time comes, when we come to make this decision, we will have the best interest of this community at heart, understanding the full implications of the request that's being made. So with that being said, I will turn it over to Clerk Almas to call the vote, please.
Certainly, thank you, Your Worship. And again, this vote is on the amendment that was proposed.
Yes, sorry, the amendment.
All right, and we'd like a recorded vote on the amendment.
Councillor Berman?
No, okay.
No. Oh, so that being said, then I will call the vote on the amendment. That is unanimous. And we've had good discussion. I don't think we need to go back to the main motion, so now I'm going to pass it over to the clerk for the recorded vote. Go ahead, please, Sarah.
Thank you, Your Worship. So on the main motion as amended, all those in favor, please raise your yes cards. The motion is carried unanimous.
Thank you very much. And that concludes this portion. It brings us to the next item, which is item 6, and I understand that we will be commencing that portion of the meeting at 5 p.m. as we have our candidates arriving at 5 p.m. So I'm going to recess this meeting, and we will reconvene at 5 p.m. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tyler, and thank you, Aaron. All right, Council, I will call us to order, and we're at item 6 of today's agenda, which is the councillor seat vacancy deputations. And first of all, I'd like to start off by welcoming all of our applicants. We have 8 here in person and 3 who are attending virtually. Thank you for putting your names forward and for coming today. We appreciate your involvement and your energy, and we look forward to hearing from each of you today. Ultimately, we will be making a decision where only one member will move forward, applicant will move forward. And so I just wanted to explain, how the current voting system works, and then there may be a motion to reconsider if council looks at it, and I want to explain why that is, first of all. So once you've finished your deputations, if council wants, we can go in camera to discuss aspects of what we've heard today. No decision is being made in camera. And currently the voting process would be to come back into open session and then have the clerk call off each individual's name, and people can raise their hands to vote for that person. And the winning candidate would have to have more than half the votes. So it could go through several rounds of voting and done in a public forum. And so we don't want to cause any embarrassment to any other of you applicants who have put in time and effort to be here today. And so the potential proposal would be that we would do the deputations, we would go in camera, no decisions would be made, and then we would come out of camera and members of council could put a name on the table and we would vote on that name and not go through each individual applicant's name. So there is a motion to reconsider. And so having said that introduction, because this is late in the day and I understand there may be concerns, I want to make sure this is done openly and transparently. So I'm going to pass the gavel to the deputy mayor to run, and I will put the motion on the table to reconsider. And any motion to reconsider has to be approved by 2/3 of council, which is 6 of 8. So with that being said, I'll pass it to you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Saunderson. I think that was fairly clear, I hope, to all those who are participating and watching at home. That said, you've indicated you'd like to put something on the floor, and I'll turn it back to you to do so. Thank you.
So first I will be putting a motion to reconsider. We received a report in January, I think it was January 21st of this year, that set out the voting mechanism that's before us today. In preparing for today, a number of council members have expressed concerns about that system, not the integrity, but just the impacts of it for all our applicants. And so I am putting a motion on the table that we reconsider that report. And if that does pass by 2/3 majority, then I will be putting on an alternate voting mechanism. So I am moving that we reconsider.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Jeffrey. And before I call the vote, just a reminder that this is a notice of reconsideration. And as there are only 8 of us, it requires 6 to pass. So with that said, if there are no questions, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? And it's carried unanimously. So again, I'll ask Mayor Saunderson then to put forward his new motion.
Thank you. So the motion reads as follows. That council hear and reconsider the council vacancy appointment procedure as approved by council in January of this year. And the council hear and approve the following procedure. 1, council members may nominate an applicant to be appointed, and if seconded, the motion will be put to the floor for discussion, debate, and the chair will call for the vote. 2, a simple majority vote of council will determine whether the nominated applicant is successful. And so that would be 5 of 8 votes today. 3, if a simple majority is not achieved for the first nominated applicant, the chair will call for motions to nominate a different applicant, then put to the floor for discussion and debate, and the chair will call for the vote until a nominated applicant achieves a simple majority. And 4, in the event of a tie vote, the candidate will be selected by lot. Are there any questions? Oh, sorry.
I'm going to ask for a seconder first, Councillor Madigan. And then looking around the table, are there any questions to what's been just put on the floor? Okay. And so in this case, it's a simple majority, so I'll ask the question. All those in favor? And again, it is carried unanimously. With that said, that ends, and I'll hand the chair back to the mayor to carry forward.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. And so thank you again for attending today. Each of you will have 5 minutes to address council, and there may be questions for you at the completion of your speech. Sarah Almas, our clerk, will be timing. You're not the only ones who are nervous. So the clerk will be timing. She will hold up what card and when. Sarah, could you please explain?
Certainly, thank you, Your Worship. I have advised the candidates here present, and I'll make sure that that I make it clear to the participants participating from home that at 4 minutes and 30 seconds, I will raise my yellow card, and that is your signal that you have 30 seconds left to conclude. If you surpass the 5-minute mark, I will raise my red card.
Thank you. Before I call our first speaker, are there any questions? All right, seeing none, our first speaker is Christopher Baines. Mr. Baines, come on forward, please.
Sorry. Problems of having a B as your last name.
Yes, Councillor Doherty.
I wonder, given the circumstances, if we can allow the applicant to start again.
Yeah, I think that's a good suggestion. If you'd like to, Mr. Baines, you can start from the top.
You wish.
Yeah.
You've heard it all, but
You can, and you start off with a 1 and a 2.
Okay.
And
you ready?
we good, Chris?
Yes.
All right, Mr. Baines, go ahead and we'll reset the clock, please.
Your Worship, Deputy Mayor Hull, members of council, I am presenting myself here today as a candidate for this vacant council seat because I believe I have the experience, skills, and temperament to be of service to the community at this particular time. Essentially, there are 3 reasons why you should consider my candidacy. The first is I'm a quick study of the process. I was a member of the Planning Committee of the Township of Georgian Bay for 4 years. I served on our town's Police Services Board from 2014 to 2018. I'm currently chair of governance for the ADR Institute of Ontario, which is the trade association of 1,200 arbitrators and mediators. We're in the process of redoing our bylaws, which is always a treat. Started my career at Queen's Park as a constituent assistant to an MPP who himself had been a councillor. Lots of filling potholes inquiries, as well as many, many more local, provincial, and even federal issues that I had to deal with. Didn't matter that it was provincial, it fell to me. He was the parliamentary assistant to the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, and in that capacity I moved on to be his legislative assistant to take the then new Planning Act through the committee for clause by clause and through the House. Secondly, I have a close connection to this community. I've been a seasonal resident since the 60s. I purchased a house in town and moved my family and business here in 2012. I drank draft beer at the captain's room, more than that actually, and watched the launching of the Patterson in 1985 at the shipyards. I'm one of the first members of the Nottawasaga Lighthouse Preservation Society, a proud member of the Toastmasters Club of Collingwood, and a member of the selection committee for the town's poet laureate. Don't think, though, that I'm artistic in that sense. A member of the Committee of Adjustment here for the town from 2018 to present. I was appointed one of the official fence viewers for an issue about fence here in the historic district. A board member of the Blue Mountain Watershed Trust. And most particularly, I'm president for the last, or have been president for the last 3 years of the Optimist Club of Collingwood and Southern Georgian Bay. We help kids. And yes, I can announce here publicly tonight that the world-famous Mother of All Yard Sales will be proceeding this year on Saturday, May the 14th at the Curling Club. Bring all your stuff that, if you're like me for the last 3 years, you've been collecting in your basement. And I was also a candidate at the last municipal election where I knocked on 2,873 doors. Too few, too late. Some of the current issues that are affecting us right now are Niagara Street's ongoing drainage issues, coyotes at Blue Shores, the 3rd Street Thruway. We need a recplex. There's many more. However, these are mere trifles to deal with compared to the ongoing and systematic issue of affordable housing, which challenges us all. I will offer my proposal on this to the Affordable Housing Task Force shortly. Still believe in wards, even though I took a whooping at the all candidates meeting by Councillor Madigan. Hats off to you. Third and last is my skills in mediation. I'm a chartered mediator and have been practicing for the last 32 years. I started by doing community and cross-cultural mediations between neighbors about dogs, fences, cooking smells, all sorts of real or imagined slights between folks. Now, mostly I do wrongful dismissal, insurance with, unfortunately, personal injury lawyers, ugh, and family estate work. Conflict is my business. These skills may prove useful at certain times, dealing with certain issues in the future for this council. My view on politicians is that you are the grease between an upset voter and an unmoving, unfeeling bureaucracy, at least the perception of that. Council members, I'm willing to get greasy. In summary, I hope some of what I presented proves of interest to council, but regardless, I thank all council members and staff for this opportunity. I'm confident that you will make a selection that is in the best interest of the community, and I'd also like to offer my heartfelt thanks to all of you for your public service. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Baines. Council, do we have, well, don't get away yet. It's a comfy chair. Do we have any questions, Council, for Mr. Baines? Councillor Doherty and then Councillor McLeod. Go ahead, please.
Thank you very much for putting your name forward, Mr. Baines. Notwithstanding that you would only be one vote, what would be your primary objective in the next 6 months of your potential tenure on council?
It may sound an overused statement, but municipal councillors are so limited in the power that they have, but it would be to try and move something concrete in regard to affordable housing.
Thank you.
Okay. Councillor McLeod, please.
Thanks for your interest in public service. Have you read our procedural bylaw and our code of conduct for councillors?
Your procedural bylaw, yes, but not your code of conduct.
Okay, thank you.
I'm not seeing any other cards. So thank you very much, Mr. Baines.
Thank you.
Our next applicant is Stuart Beeston. Mr. Beeston?
Sorry, I believe, Your Worship, that Mr.
Oh, I got
Beeson.
that's my old list. Sorry. All right. Wrong page. My apologies. Our second candidate then is Chris Carrier, and he is appearing remotely. Pass it over to tech staff. Good afternoon, Mr. Carrier.
Good afternoon, Mayor Saunderson. How are you today?
We're doing well, thanks. You have 5 minutes, and I will hold, I guess for your purpose, because you can see me, I don't think you can see the clerk. What will happen is at the 4 minutes and 30 seconds, I'll hold up the yellow card, and at 5 minutes, I will hold up the red card. And so you have 5 minutes, sir, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Saunderson, Deputy Mayor Hall, Councillors McLeod, Madigan, Doherty, Berman, Jeffrey Hamlin, staff, guests, and fellow applicants. It's a privilege for me to put my name forward for your consideration to serve the citizens of Collingwood with each of you for the remainder of this council term. I actually voted for all 8 of you, and while voting is usually done by secret ballot, I felt it was important for me to tell you why I voted for each of you. To the incumbents, I felt that your 2018 period of voting record, and in particular your vote for the judicial inquiry, I want to thank you publicly for making that very necessary choice and politically challenging choice. To the first term elected members, I voted for you because alongside your incumbent colleagues, you too exemplified integrity, trustworthiness, and empathy during the campaign. Integrity matters. I've been an avid political watcher for a very long time. I've kept up with many of our local issues like you. I am rather fond of my adopted hometown. The policies put in place since the judicial inquiry have gone a long way to restore the trust in the process. But as we learned, it often comes down to the integrity of the decision makers. I was proud to serve 4 consecutive terms and even prouder to lead Team Collingwood from December 2006 to December 2010 as mayor. A lot of good things were achieved by both elected and non-elected leaders in our community. In large part, those achievements were made because openness, transparency, and integrity were more than political campaign buzzwords. I would like to be perfectly clear. The motivation to put my name forward is my desire to serve with you for the remainder of your term to complete as much as possible within our community strategic plan, the goals that you, the elected council, determined were the priority. This is not a launch for a political comeback. I will not be a political candidate in the upcoming election cycle, nor will I be part of any political campaign. My agenda will be to focus on the needs of our community through the objectives already determined by the rest of you. Once again, I would very much like to work with you to continue to put integrity, inclusiveness, and trust for the betterment of Collingwood at the forefront of all decision-making. Thank you for your attention and consideration. Miigwech. Having worked alongside you during the Vision 2020 exercise, I was equally concerned that we were becoming a community of haves and have-nots. We've seen certainly in the last few years that real estate access for your first home, and sometimes even for our retirees of getting into the housing market or maintaining to be in the housing market is a challenge. So like the Mr. Baines, I would like to see the ball move forward on the issue of accessibility to housing, attainable housing or affordable housing, whichever term you would like to use. But I think it is the most critical thing that we're facing right now in our community is whether or not a lot of the people that we care about, whether they can afford to live here.
Thank you.
Councillor McLeod.
Thank you so much for your interest in public service and for your public service.
Thank you.
My question, Mr. Carrier, is have you read our procedural bylaw and have you read our code of conduct for councillors?
So yes, I have read your procedural bylaw. I've read your lobbyist registrar. I've read your code of conduct. I wish you'd stop changing the procedural bylaw because then I have to reread it every time. I'm also somebody who reads the Municipal Act. I'm also in my private sector employment working with a number of communities across the country. So I often research their local legislation as well, and their local lobbyist registrars as well. So yeah, I read a lot of various documents pertaining to not only Collingwood, but outside communities as well.
I'm not seeing any other cards. Thank you very much, Mr. Carrier, for your participation today.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
Our next candidate is Derrick Cummins.
Everyone. Your Worship, Deputy Mayor Hall, and councillors, my name is Derrick Cummins, and if you've read my open letter, you will know why I'm applying for this position, but I will say it again anyways, because I love this town and I want to help it grow. As you will see, many of the other applicants have a much deeper background than I do sitting on councils, committees, and boards. I've never been a fence viewer, nor have I been a mayor. But is that what this council really needs? It seems to me you already have a wealth of experience. I think it's time for someone new. A counselor in training, someone willing to learn, someone who is not set in their ways and who represents a slightly younger demographic. If you choose me for the position, my personal experience will be a great asset. I moved to Collingwood right before COVID after 7 years in Toronto, so I have the experience of being raised here, being a weekender, and being a new resident. This will help me understand the various wants and needs of the people of this town. I will bring my keen eye for aesthetic that I've developed from seeing many towns and cities around the world blend glorious old architecture with a modern sensibility. For example, if there is a way to stop any more bright blue cannabis stores from popping up, I'm all in. I understand that good ideas need funding. Every decision must be financially sound, and whenever possible, new initiatives should try to be a generator of income as a primary or secondary objective. And finally, my greatest asset, my people skills. I have honed them as the owner of a plumbing business, keeping both my customers and employees happy. I work well on a team as a leader or a member. I am great with conflict resolution. I am honest and have the patience to see things through. If I'm not sitting beside you in the coming weeks, then I hope to after the next election. In closing, I can help this council develop the ideas and policies that will keep our young people and professionals excited about Collingwood, so they will stay here to fill and create jobs and keep our town vibrant. I also believe we must keep Collingwood's historical identity alive and in some ways expand it, so we keep our beautiful town from transforming into a place that is unrecognizable. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cummins. Councillor Doherty.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cummins.
No problem.
You probably are used to this question by now. Over the next 6 months or so, what would be your most desired achievement?
To learn the way things work around here, I guess, to be quite honest. I mean, everybody else has talked about the affordable housing. This issue hits pretty close to home for me. You know, I have a younger brother who had a fantastic job and is nearly impossible for him to buy here. So, yeah, if we could all get on the affordable housing front, that would be spectacular.
Thank you.
Councillor McLeod.
Thanks for coming to see us.
No, I have not read those.
Should
But,
I ask it or?
I'm a quick study. I'm very familiar with plumbing codes. I have a plumbing business, so I've read code books and bylaws. So I understand the way these things work. And you know what? I could probably scoot over them tonight pretty quickly if need be.
Thank you for your honesty.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cummins.
Thank you.
Our next applicant is Cam Ecclestone. Come forward, please, Mr. Ecclestone.
Nice to see everybody again, and thank you for this opportunity. I guess I could take my mask off now, right? You should have received my one-page, I guess you'd call it a précis on what I've done in business and in politics. And I'm just assuming that you've read that and that you understand what I've done over the years. And my presentation tonight will be short. I have 3 items that I wish to present for your consideration. Firstly, at age 82, my close friends continue to tell me that I'm doing well both mentally and physically. And I think I'm doing well myself. Each year I have a blood workup done for the last 15 years or so. And last December, my doctor, Marion Arthur, reviewed all my blood samples with me and took about 10 minutes, which is hard to get an appointment for 10 minutes these days. But she reviewed all the various items with me, about 20 in all, and in her own words at the end, she said, "Cam, these results are terrific, and don't do anything different, and I'll see you in 2 years," which made me feel pretty good, obviously. If I'm the successful candidate, I would commit to you to review the past 3 years that have been active and ensure that I get up to speed fairly quickly on everything, and particularly on a financial front to get a handle on our budget and where we stand on our reserve funds. We have a big nut coming up, I guess $110 million apparently, so that's got to be handled properly. And so I would think 4 or 5 weeks I would be back up to speed with all of you and would be able to contribute as I have in the past. For full disclosure, last November I was headhunted, or I guess chosen to be the candidate for the Ontario, or the Consensus Ontario Party. And I can't go into that because it'll take too long to do that, but I made a commitment. I love what they stand for, which is basically partyless politics. Each MPP is an equal, and each MPP is an independent. And a win for the party would be a 7th or 8th place among all of the parties. Our leaders feel that the riding will remain conservative, and that I would be relied upon to give them a basis for the future so that the party would move forward down the road. I've racked my brain. I can't feel that there's any conflict that there would be in doing this. Priority would always be to the council, and my duties there. And if any of you felt that this was a conflict, I wouldn't let the party down, but I would choose a different candidate, work with that candidate to represent Consensus Ontario. And it would be awesome for me to serve the term out with you guys. I know most of you served with 4 of you, and I guess 5 if you count Steve and the library board, I guess. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ecclestone. Councillor Doherty. Councillor Doherty and Councillor McLeod have questions for you, sir.
I'm sorry?
Councillor Doherty and Councillor McLeod have questions for you. Go ahead, Councillor Doherty.
Thank you for putting your name forward, Mr. Ecclestone. And as I've asked the others, what would be your most desired achievement as a member of this council?
I think 2 things. I think first, in the 1990s, I served as a head of council for Minden. And the Colleges Association approached me, and the taxes were going absolutely out of sight, 13%, 13%, and 15%. And I got elected by acclamation, and I introduced the concept of zero-based budgeting, and I couldn't, and increases for income or for salaries was held to 2%, and I came in at 0, 0, and -1, and the Colleges Association obviously were pretty happy with that. And secondly, Linda Markowski and I took about 9 months, and we did a lot of work on youth homelessness here in Collingwood. We visited over 55 or 60 different agencies, the parents, the kids, and whatever, and we sat down with Ray Smith and presented our case. And Ray said to me, and it just blew me away, he said, I'll spend up to $900,000 of my own money, and beyond that, if I get paid back, great. So 53 Campbell Street came about, and I understand now there's not 7 bedrooms when I looked at the plans and Linda looked at the plans, but now it's 10, I understand, and doing quite well. And I feel really proud of that because the kids were in trouble. The main cause was a marriage breakdown between the families, and I hate to say it, but mostly lower socioeconomic, and a new partner comes in, don't want the kid's out, there's nowhere to go. And it's sad, sad, sad to see that. So I understand there's been about 40 or 45 graduates of that class now that are kids that are out on their own. I know Kathy's on the board. And yeah, it just, I have a feeling for those who aren't doing as well as the rest of us. And so that was a good thing, and I feel proud of myself for doing that. It was a lot of time and a lot of effort, and I'm probably over my 5 minutes on there. Anyway, thank you for your attention. It would be awesome for me to join you for the balance of the term, and I'll leave it to you. Thank you very much.
We have one last question for you, Mr. Ecclestone. Go ahead, Councillor McLeod. One more question. Yeah. Go ahead, Councillor McLeod.
Thank you. Have you read our new procedural bylaw and the new code of conduct as amended last fall?
I'm sorry?
Have you read our new procedural bylaw and the new code of conduct that were amended last fall?
I have not.
Thank
but
you.
I would.
Thank you.
And I would get up to speed quickly.
Great. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Ecclestone. Our next applicant is Tim Fryer.
Mayor Saunderson, Deputy Mayor Hull, council members, thank you for this opportunity to address you face-to-face today. I first want to express to the other candidates of today's process gratitude for you and your family's interest and commitment. There is still significant impact on family, even in this short-term case. I am sure if allowed, they and your other supporters would be here, as mine would be, to provide further support as one would expect in any normal election process. I am sure that the Chambers wouldn't have quite the same scene, though, as it was back in 1979 when it filled with shipyard workers supporting Bob Livingston's appointment decision by then Mayor Harry Bell's council. Apparently, Mayor Bell had to use the gavel many times that night. I wasn't here then, but just beginning my municipal career, still as a pipe layer for the Public Utilities Water Department, having earned an economics degree and moving into the final stages of completing my CMA CPA program by correspondence, leading me to shortly after attending the Chambers regularly to assist council in decision-making on utility-related matters. The current council governs this term because of the results of the 2018 municipal election. My position, first stated to you on January 26th, is that when former Councillor Comey unfortunately could no longer participate, I should be allowed to join the governing body. That position hasn't changed, but I recognize the need in this process to provide brief comments to council in support of my application. So briefly, but not because of level of importance, for the major matters such as the new hospital, affordable housing, the terminals, and growth-related pressure items, and I use as an example the Depoche Poplar Side Road project, I can state that I am already very familiar with these. There may be minimal action occurring before the lame duck period comes into effect, but I am prepared. Of other integral matters, 4 key ones that require ongoing actions over the coming months. 1. Municipal water and wastewater matters. 2. EPCOR's April 1st early rate rebasing application. 3. Oversight of the 2022 budget, including any unfinanced expenditure items while in lame duck. 4. Issues which may arise due to the provincial 3-year delay of commercial value assessment updating. As noted on Monday by former Mayor Geddes, the average house sale price is $1.1 million, but the median CVA is only 1/3 of that. It's understood that the delay is due to the pandemic, which is its own key matter. I have noted my support of the COVID steps taken to council and staff in earlier presentations and will continue to be the case. Time doesn't allow me to elaborate more fully about these. I will state that my background and ongoing analysis work would provide council with another knowledgeable and objective perspective for when these issues and others that arise need to be immediately dealt with. My current level of understanding also will minimize the requirement of direct interaction with staff to get updated on the key issues when properly preparing to make upcoming decisions. I won't risk boring anyone by repeating the reasons that I have already stated in my earlier submission to council that was accepted without discussion of a reconsideration on the February 7th SIC consent agenda. The subsequent local media coverage was not solicited, as I was simply following protocol for a possible reconsideration at the very next meeting of council after the prior decision to request applications had been made. From my earlier statement, though, I will reestablish that I continue to extol the principle that the municipal voter decides who will serve them at the governance table. So when a vacancy requires a council decision, every effort should be made to follow the voters' direction that they have mandated in the most recent election. After considerable expense and effort, I unfortunately just fell a little short of being elected in 2018. Now I am trying to utilize this current opportunity to help fulfill my commitment to what the voters mandated. I expect any of you would be doing the same if you were in these circumstances, and I would be supportive of that. To close off on my submission, as I noted earlier, for more than 4 decades, I have been involved with attending these chambers to work with council members in the decision-making process. The honor of being part of what I consider to be very successful years in Collingwood's development have been very gratifying. If from this open process, council chooses to allow my further participation, I'm ready to partake. Thank you again for this opportunity to address you.
Thank you, Mr. Fryer. I think we have 2 questions for you, and we'll start with Councillor Doherty's.
I'm pretty sure I know the question. So and it is. I'll try to whittle it down. It appears to me that the most significant thing that this council will be trying to do is get the official plan taken care of, and hopefully the zoning amendment and the ICBL removal. So it would be my goal to be doing that, because I think that stands in the way of so many other things. So that would be this, for whittling it down to one, that would be the specific one I would. I am familiar with the procedural bylaw and the changes that have happened. I would go back and familiarize myself even more if I'm into the procedure part of it, and the enhanced code of conduct. I'm certainly aware of the changes that have been made with that as well.
Thank you. That was easy.
Neither of them had a chance to ask. Thank you very much, Mr. Fryer.
Thank you very much.
Our next applicant is Joe Gardhouse.
Just back there reading the new procedural bylaw. And yes, the hospital is my number one thing right now. But we'll take that question later. First of all, before we get into it, I'd just like to thank all the candidates who came here today. It's a great testament of community spirit when you have this many people that are here trying to fill in for this vacancy. Mayor and Council, good afternoon. Thank you for this opportunity to apply for this vacancy on Town Council. I have worked with some of you here around the table in the past, and you should know me. For those of you who do not know me, I have been a resident of Collingwood for the last 50 years. I'm happily married for 30 years to my wife, and we have 6 children, 4 of them step and 2 of them regular. And I have been a businessman in this town for approximately 12 years. In the last 21 years, I have been a realtor in the town of Collingwood. Throughout all that time, I have tried to serve the community as best I could. And in my younger years, I am the past everything of the Collingwood Kinsman Club. And in my later years, I had 3 times on council, and I served with the Committee of Adjustment on 3 different occasions. And when I was on council, I had the pleasure of being on the hospital board, the Heritage Committee, Parks and Recreation Council representative, and on the Site Plan Development Committee. And through all of that, I learned an awful lot. In the last few weeks, I've been reviewing the last 6 months of council's agenda and minutes. And as I'm going through all the issues to bone up for today, I realized that the things that we were dealing with when I was on council are still here. We're still dealing with affordable housing. We're dealing with recreational facilities, a hospital, a new hospital, and controlled growth in Collingwood. And I think that I am qualified to step into that position because we were doing it before and we'll keep doing it now. Council, you guys have a checklist of who should go or why that person should be there in this position. One of those checklists on the checklist will, of course, will be experience. The other one will be character. The other will be active in the community. Is that person that way? But I think your number one consideration should be, is that person going to be a team player? And I respectfully request that you let me be part of your team and carry forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gardhouse. And you did take a run at those questions. I don't know if Councillor Doherty or Councillor McLeod have any follow-up for you.
Right after affordable housing, I really think after I spent some time on the hospital board, and that really takes you home. That's something. Now, realistically, your question is, what can I do in the next 6 months? Probably nothing, but
No.
that will be
number one priority.
That's my number one. That's the one thing I would like to see for sure.
Great, thank you. Thank you for putting your name forward.
And I'll be sleeping with procedural bylaw under my pillow tonight.
That's what I do.
I have read the updated code of ethics, but I haven't read I got to be honest with you, I haven't read the updated procedural bylaw.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gardhouse.
Okay. Thank you.
Our next applicant is Stephen Grasby, and Mr. Grasby will be attending virtually. How are you doing in the control booth? You want to move to the next candidate, or can you bring Mr. Grasby in?
Thank you, Your Worship. We actually don't see him on our remote participation. We had done a test with Mr. Grasby earlier today as he was participating by telephone through the Zoom program.
Yeah.
And I guess we shall carry on, and if he joins us, I will let you know, Your Worship.
Thank you. Paul Ireland. Paul, you're next up, please.
Thought I had another 5 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor Saunderson, Deputy Mayor Hall, council, staff, and my fellow applicants. My name is Paul Ireland, and I am a proud resident of Collingwood. I'm delighted that we have been successful in creating a Four Seasons community, that Collingwood welcomes diversity and the utmost respect for Indigenous members of this town. I'm thankful that we have mountains to ski on and magnificent beaches to play on and beautiful water to swim in, and over 60 kilometers of hiking and biking trails, which my lovely bride Kathy and I take advantage of all the time. I'm here this evening to explain why you should select me to fill the vacancy on town council to help continue to manage and protect and grow our town responsibly. No doubt you reviewed my cover letter with the original application, and I'm a little overwhelmed by what I saw before I got up here. Nonetheless, I see this as an 8-month appointment as a great opportunity to support the town council with some fresh concepts and a clean sheet of paper of the vital issues that you manage on a daily basis, and such as business and economic development, including the waterfront master plan for the promenade and the grain elevator revitalization, which also includes the call to interested parties that I believe is due on around the end of this month. Energy conservation within the town's own buildings, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. And the continuous and complex improvements to the water processing plant, which recently announced on March the 7th that the cost for the water plant expansion had risen from $65 million to $120.9 million. And I would like to understand the process that established the original estimate versus almost doubling the cost in less than 1 year to add a public washroom, a sidewalk on Raglan Street, and electric car chargers. I'm not quite familiar with that budgeting process and how these things get thrown in later on and the budget gets doubled. Nonetheless, I'm not a chemist or an engineer. However, I do have extensive experience with building automation solutions that reduce energy consumption and help protect the environment. So I'd like to look into that and see what we're doing in that area. I will listen to the experts that are on the town staff and support their ideas and input for the benefit of the community. And I would additionally like to contribute to the decisions regarding the proposed changes to the food vendor licensing procedure for the town. Due to my extensive business experience, including long-range planning, budgeting, and forecasting, I'm not an accountant, by the way, I do bring a business executive's perspective to prioritizing expenditures, answering to the shareholders, in this case, the public. And one of my business models has always been that if you take care of the nickels and dimes, the dollars will take care of themselves. And a mentor gave me that many, many years ago, and it stuck with me, and it works. You should be aware that I intend to be part of the town council by way of election campaign this fall. And if I secure a seat on town council, I plan to actively promote continuous communication with the public at large, vis-a-vis Engage Collingwood, which I think is an excellent part of the website, and an open door policy for anyone to enter and participate in constructive dialogue relating to improvements to our town going forward. Since you don't know me, I believe it's important to share some of my best attributes with you. And that will help me to do a good job on council. First of all, my integrity is my most treasured characteristic. And my expectation is that others will feel the same. I will not make a promise that I cannot keep, and if I say I will do something, it will get done. Secondly, I'm honest to a fault. In the words of Benjamin Franklin, honesty is the best policy, and I believe honesty is also trust. And to be honest, it was actually coined by Sir Edwin Sandys in the 1500s. Thank you all for this opportunity to give back to the community, to help progress, yet preserve this exceptional town's qualities, and I look forward to becoming a member of the Collingwood Town Council.
Thank you, Mr. Ireland.
We have 2 questions for you. We'll start off with
Okay.
Councillor Doherty.
Thank you for putting your name forward. And you probably have these questions committed to memory by now, but what would be your hoped primary achievement over the next 6 to 8 months?
With everything that's going on in the town, I also have to take a look at it from the perspective of where can I give the best input and have the most influence. And I would have to say that could be with the waterfront master plan, with the promenade and the grain elevator revitalization. If you ever go on social media, you know that that's a continuous subject on there, and some are for and some are against, but we need a solution that works for the town. So I would definitely get involved with that if I could, and especially the call to interested parties. I'd like to see those RFIs and see what makes sense for the town of Collingwood. But I really think the most important thing is getting this water plant up to speed. I don't have any qualifications in that area, so I'd stand back on that one.
Thank you.
Councillor McLeod.
Have you read our procedural bylaws and have you read our updated code of conduct?
I read them. I hope you're not going to give me a test because it's been about 3 or 4 weeks since I did, but I went cover to cover on it and read them, and I thought it was an excellent document.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ireland.
Thank you.
I'm going to look to staff. Do we have Mr. Grasby back? All right, so we're going to go back
Yeah.
and we're going to bring in Mr. Stephen Grasby, please.
I think my 5 minutes is probably
Mr.
expired by
Grasby, can you
now.
hear us?
Can you hear me? Hello? 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 No, I can't. I can hear you, but I
Mr.
guess
Grasby,
you can't
can you
hear
hear
me.
us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I think we might have lost
Hello?
him again. Hello, Mr. Grasby, can you hear
Well-
us?
I have it here.
All right, Mr. Grasby, we can hear you. Can you hear us?
Yeah.
All right.
If you can hear me, everything's good, and I'm sorry for expiring my 5 minutes.
No, we can hear you, and we'll start your 5 minutes now if you're ready to go.
Hey, I apologize for that. Good afternoon, Your Worship, Deputy Mayor, and fellow councillors. I am Stephen Grasby, 8 years here and 53 in my hometown of Georgetown, part of Halton Hills. I think the math is pretty simple. 7 years ago, my wife, a frontline worker, purchased 97 Napier from Ted Cooper for just over $200,000. The original owner was George Collins, 1855, who operated the Nottawasaga Lighthouse from 1859 to 1890. George applied to be the first keeper, but was placed in charge of Cove Island until he swapped in 59. His rescue of the Mary Wood in 1872 rewarded him $15 and a silver tea set that we have yet to find in our renovations, totaling $100,000 to this once distressed teardown. For the past 3 years, we have created the Butterfly House with 4,000 liters of rainwater reserve, pumps, fountains, metal birds, and hundreds of different flowers to attract what's left of the monarch empire. Water was a major issue in Halton Hills for growth. Hooking up to the big pipe from Lake Ontario via the Milton Corridor is ongoing. Milton remained independent through regional government in 1974 and benefited beyond in meeting its needs in infrastructure and transit, and it's a huge melting pot now with over 100,000 residents. It's a sad dilemma situated beside water, yet lacking the essentials for growth. Tomorrow is not the answer. Yesterday was. I find our community lacking both fresh water and sewage, more or less responsible for the inflated housing prices in Simcoe County. There's a huge demand with no inventory, and the parasite is spreading everywhere. The homeless and low income are now silenced as the mid and high earners join the group, with the rich and poor remaining. Moving on, thinking outside the box, I will touch on a few ideas. with water and sewage being the #1 priority being addressed immediately. The grain elevator needing constant updating should be taken down and replaced with a 3D hologram light show surrounding the waterfront, saving millions of dollars. Let's see free bus and subsidized taxi fares for our seniors and disabled. A county-ran transit system should be implemented, such as the Activan program in Halton Hills, subsidized by taxpayers for our sacred. Next, we should set up an injury and prevention team with volunteers throughout the community, meeting with both police and town staff to address concerns and issues of residents, where many cry wolf with little response. My last inexpensive thought for tourists and locals is a red and white metal tiger tail added under each stop sign for visibility improvement. The orange and red being for construction and a complete eyesore. Having ran at both the local and regional level in my hometown, it was not about winning, but seeing any of my issues eventually addressed. Thanks and have a great afternoon.
Thank you very much, Mr. Grasby. And we have 2 questions for you, one from Councillor Doherty and one from Councillor McLeod. I'll look first to Councillor Doherty, please.
Thank you so much for putting your name forward, Mr. Grasby. You outlined a number of objectives that you had in the coming months, but if you could just boil it down to one, what would be your most desired achievement over the next 6 to 8 months?
Rapidly working on the water and sewage to expand town growth and relieve the market so that pricing will come down and be a little bit more affordable for even the ones that make incredible money yet can still not afford a mortgage in Collingwood.
Councillor McLeod.
Thank you for taking the time. Have you read our procedural bylaw and have you read our code of conduct as updated in November and December?
I read what information was sent to me via the application for the vacant council seat, but as far as anything, if that was attached, I did read it, but if it wasn't attached, I did not read it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time today, Mr. Grasby.
Yeah, have a great day. Thank you, sir.
Our next applicant is Stephen Johns. Stephen, please.
Well, good evening, Mayor Saunderson, Deputy Mayor Hall, members of council. It is with thanks and appreciation that I appear before you and speak to my interest in the position of councillor for the town of Collingwood for the balance of the current term. And while I've been a permanent Collingwood resident for a relatively short period of time, having moved up from Toronto in August of 2020, I have thoroughly enjoyed the experience and am impressed beyond expectations by the town and its many redeeming qualities, including vibrancy and resilience displayed in the face of the formidable challenges posed by the COVID-19 pandemic. So I really view this appointment as an opportunity to make a tangible contribution to the town I now proudly call home. I believe I can bring to the position a relevant combination of experience, skills, and perspective that will allow me to seamlessly step into the role while also drinking from a fire hose as may be required, undoubtedly will be required. In terms of specific experience, I served as an executive assistant to a couple of members of the City of Toronto and Metro Councils in the 1980s prior to amalgamation. And this provided me with direct exposure to the inner workings of municipal governments, key issues and policy priorities, accountability to related processes and protocols, and the importance of listening, engaging, collaborating, and otherwise working in an informed and responsible manner in the best interests of residents, local businesses, and other key stakeholders. Key responsibilities included, among others, representing the councillors as required, grassroots constituency interaction, meeting and policy position preparation, community and media relations, and issue-specific research and analysis. And one example in the latter connection was an assignment I was sent to Los Angeles on in 1985 to conduct an economic and social impact analysis of the 1984 Summer Olympic Games. And my findings and recommendations were included in the final report presented to and adopted by City Council that served as a foundation piece for the City of Toronto's decision to submit a bid for the 1996 Summer Olympic Games, which ultimately were awarded to Atlanta. Other career highlights include, most recently, a long-term stint with the Canadian Chamber of Commerce. I was at the Canadian Chamber for 15 and a half years, working in the capacity of Senior Director of Corporate Member and Association Relations. I retired at the end of 2020, and as undoubtedly most of you are aware, all of you are aware, the Canadian Chamber is considered by many to be the preeminent and most influential advocacy organization in the country. I also served as president for 11 years of the Lumber and Building Materials Association of Ontario. I was, during that time, also the president of the National Umbrella Group, the Canadian Retail Building Supply Council, for 3 years. And I've also served in senior capacities in 2 successful and exciting small businesses. In all cases, these positions had a decided client relations and business development bent. I've also served on a number of boards, standing committees and task forces, also served in a number of volunteer capacities. A really neat one actually was last summer when I volunteered at Duntroon Highlands Golf Course. Met some great people. One of them is actually in this room today, and it was a great way to really get to know some of the great people in Collingwood and region. This is both a challenging and an exciting time for the town of Collingwood as it works its way out of the COVID-19 pandemic, and I don't think I have to tell any of you that. Dealing with the pandemic's fiscal implications and supporting residents and the business community on the road to economic recovery is and will continue to be a formidable task. At the same time, heavy lifting will have to continue without interruption, focused on priorities, including but certainly not limited to, and we've heard about some of them today, but sustainably preserving and enhancing key assets such as the critical infrastructure, Collingwood's waterfront, which has been mentioned, the Collingwood grain terminals, the trail network, et cetera. These are jewels. The continued reliable delivery of essential municipal services, and top of mind currently in this regard, of course, is the water treatment plant expansion and its related scope and cost. A comprehensive and sustainable residential, commercial, and industrial development strategy that recognizes current and future needs and evolving demographics in a manner that also supports and bolsters, frankly, Collingwood's character, heritage, integrity, and economic development and job creation capacity. Housing access and affordability, of course. And finally, continuing to unabashedly promote Collingwood as an attractive and unique place in which to live, work, play, and frankly, celebrate. So in closing, I'm hopeful of the opportunity to work collaboratively with council colleagues, staff, and community representatives in the ongoing effort to build from the strong foundation formed through the official plan, community-based strategic plan, and the various master plans, management plans, and frameworks that this council actually can take great pride in. And in the process, I also look forward to providing a new and high level of energy, enthusiasm, and constructive input. So with that, I'll stop. We'll be pleased to answer the predictable questions and otherwise address any issues you might have.
Thank you very much
for this opportunity.
All right. Go ahead, Councillor Doherty.
Thank you very much for putting your name forward. So, yeah, you've probably got it committed to memory now. What would be your single most desired achievement over the next 6 to 8 months?
Well, I'm not sure that it can be an achievement that we can bring closure to within the next 6 to 8 months. But the pandemic obviously has had a profound and powerful impact on residents, certainly on businesses, notably small businesses, and you hear about that input literally daily. So beyond the priorities that I briefly outlined a couple of moments ago, I'd like to think and hope that there can be a concerted and coordinated effort to work with the business community, work with the residents as we continue to soften the blow, if you will, of COVID-19, and of course do so in a fiscally responsible manner. That's going to be a challenge. Obviously, COVID has impacted the budget, but I think pandemic recovery certainly has to move towards the top of the list.
Thank you.
Councillor McLeod.
Thank you for coming. Have you read our procedural bylaw and our code of conduct?
I did have a chance to, skim read, not read thoroughly, but I did take a look at both last night.
18 rules is a lot.
It was absolutely.
Thank
I did
you.
have a quick look.
Thank you very much, Mr. Johns.
Thank you for having me.
Our next candidate is David Martin, who will be participating remotely. I see Mr. Martin on our screen there. Can you hear us, sir?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
We can, but we have the wrong name.
Oh.
So can you make Mr. Martin bigger for us? No? Okay, Mr. Martin, we've got you on the small screen, but we can hear you very well, so please go ahead.
Okay, perfect. Great. Thank you very much, Your Worship, Mayor Hall, and Council. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you this evening. For those of you who don't know me, my name is David Martin. I was born and raised in Collingwood. I have been working remote out in the city of Mississauga for approximately 30 years and have had the great opportunity to be able to work remotely and come and move back to Collingwood. And that has afforded me the option to live in this great community that we call home. You have received my statement, which identifies the reasons why I feel that I would be an appropriate person to fill the position of councillor for the remainder of the term. But one of the things, as it is a long evening, I would like to say is that with those 30 years of experience that I have, I believe that the knowledge, experience, and objectivity I have that I've gained over those 30 years with the progressive municipality can be of assistance to council in completing the remainder of the term. I have read the Councillor Code of Conduct and the procedural bylaw. I am not a card-carrying member of any party, whether it be federal or provincial. I think that's important in municipal politics. I can reconfirm that I will not be seeking election in the fall. I believe this is a great opportunity for volunteer experience for a short period of time, but I do not have any political aspirations to proceed forward after that. And with that, I think I'll just leave it with those if there's any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Martin. I think you've answered one question, so I'll look to Councillor Doherty to pose her question for you.
Thank you very much for putting your name forward. And so my question is, what would be your most desired achievement over the next 6 to 8 months?
Sure. I think my most desired outcome would be to assist council with some of the development pressures on the town. Development pressures cover a wide variety of things, which include affordable housing. So I think being able to assist council in making some decisions going forward over the next 6 to 8 months on the development pressures that the town has experienced, I think would be very gratifying for myself.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Martin. And that will bring us then to our final candidate, Tim McNabb.
It works. Thank you, Your Worship, Deputy Mayor, councillors. I appreciate this opportunity. I actually was driving around the town and looking at things that I had done. Let me give you a little history of, well, most of you may know who I am or what I've done, but I'll talk about it. I was first elected to town council in 1991. In 91, we were losing industry. And we were talking about what do we need to do to keep our town alive and keep people paying taxes and keep people in jobs. So we were looking, so I spent a lot of energy with the official plan, the zoning bylaws, and we did that in 2000. I was chaired it and brought in a lot of things in 2000 that were new, and I've spent 20 years, and now they're being built out. So as I was driving around, looking at the things that have been built out, thinking, hey, I had an input on that, and that was positive, and made me feel good about my time on council, because, there's a lot of negativity that you bring over time. You do a lot of good work, but it tends to be the negative things that people throw at you. So I thought, you know what? There's 7 months left in this council. You need somebody that can get up to the table, get up to speed quickly, that has the history, and can produce results with you guys and work with you. And I've worked with some of you before at the table, went to school with some of you, worked with some of you, so you know that I try to keep an open mind. I do not, I will let you know where I stand on an issue, but I am open to listen to the other side. Go through, my family's been in this town since the 1830s, before the town was incorporated. I'm concerned that I may be the last generation of McNabbs that can afford to live in this town. And that is very, very concerning. And that's what I'd like to see if we're working on the official plan. I have experience on the official plan. I'd like to try to get creative with the official plan on how we can implement some things at the official plan level, the zoning bylaw level, to try to create more affordable housing. When I was deputy mayor in 2000, I started the Affordable Housing Committee back then. Lost the election, and it kind of went off the wheels after that. The committee's going on, but what I was trying to do at that time was I had developers in, landowners in, people that wanted to invest in buying housing, trying to put something together so that we could work. The property that we were looking at was the Ferracuti property along High Street. It's the old apple orchard there, still sitting there. I'd like to look at trying to revive that. There's 4 apartment buildings that go in there that will go a long way to addressing some of the issues. I live in the galleries. A lot of old Collingwood lives in the galleries, and they're finding it hard to pay the rent. They're finding it hard, they've retired for 20 years, and the retirement funds aren't going to cover rent. A lot of them have moved into the affordable housing that was built. If we want to keep Collingwood here, we have to do something, and that's what I'd like to try to help this council do. And I don't know whether I'm going to run in the next election. I had been tired after 16 years on council, and certainly burnt out. I'm sitting before you today feeling energized and ready to roll again, but you've got a decision to make. We've got a lot of good candidates, and you just got to find the one that you think will slide into council, be able to work with you guys. I've done it 2 or 3 times when I was on council, having to replace it. And it's just getting somebody you think you can work with, that, you have things you've been working on for 3 years. You want to bring them, or 4 years now, right? Bring it to a conclusion. And, so I work with all you guys, with staff to try to get things done. It's only 6 months, 7 months, but you want to leave this term positive and move into the next term. Leave it at that.
Thank you very much, Mr. McNabb. And I'll pass it to Councillor Doherty to ask her question.
Thank you, Mr. McNabb, for putting your name forward. And as you probably know now, my question would be, over the next 6 to 8 months, what would be your most desired achievement?
Would be to put something in the official plan that would go towards affordability and housing, that people that live here can continue to live here. Our children can live here. Our children can move or stay here. I have a 12-year-old daughter, and I don't know whether she'll ever be able to afford to buy a house in Collingwood. It's crazy, the house prices. Now, I have to say, when I was in the 90s, we were looking at retirement and getting people to retire here. It's a great place to retire here. We built the housing for that. We were very, very successful. I'm happy for that, but I wish I had a thought about, we really need to put that piece in from 20 years ago, the affordability, so that now when all that got built out, people here would be able to still be able to afford reasonable rent, and it might just be rentals. But, you know, if people have spent their whole life, were born and raised in Collingwood, they should be able to live their life out here instead of having to move. And that's my number one concern.
Thank you.
Councillor McLeod.
Thanks for your interest. Have you read the new procedural bylaw and the new code of conduct?
Okay, you've known me since high school. I'll read it when you give me this seat. Other than that, I have other things to do.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Mr. McNabb. And that concludes our presentation portion, and I just want to congratulate all of you. You've made this an extremely difficult decision. I've done a few job interviews, and I can't recall a time when I've had 11 candidates in front of me with this level of experience, qualification, and eloquence. So thank you very much to each of you for your time today. And that brings us then to item 7.1, which is the in-camera portion, and we discussed at the outset how this process would work. We'd go on camera, no decisions are being made, but there would be open discussion about what we've heard today and what we've read, and then we will come back into open session. So I will read the motion in, and I'll look for a mover and seconder. And the motion reads as follows. Whereas the clerk hereby concurs the reasons for the in-camera session have been duly reviewed and considered, and the matters are authorized under the exception provisions to conduct a closed session in accordance with the Municipal Act prior to proceeding into closed session. Therefore, be it resolved that this council proceeds in camera in order to address a matter pertaining to 1. Personal matters about identifiable individuals, including town or local board employees, and that's item A. And the item for discussion is councillor vacancy applications. So I will look for a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Jeffrey and Councillor McLeod. Any questions or comments, council, before I call the vote? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. I understand I'm looking to Clerk Almus as we're going into the Braniff room. And you've given us a very great deal to discuss based on the quality of your presentations and your experience. So we will get it back out to you as soon as we can, but I expect that may take a while. So thank you very much to each of you. Feel free to stand up, move around. All right, council, we need a motion to resolve from in camera and move back into open session. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Hamlin, seconded by Councillor Berman, and we are moving back into open session at 7:16 p.m. All in favor? That's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. I want to say to all the applicants, you made our decision very difficult. No decision was made in camera, as I said would happen. So what we are going to do is move away a bit from our normal voting processes, because we have to get a majority of 5 to get any candidate appointed. So we are going to, names will be put on the table, and then they will be seconded and voted on. Only yes cards will go up, and when we get 5 out of 8, we will have a winner. It may not happen in the first round, so there may be names getting called twice. So under our current procedural bylaw, you can't revisit a vote without a 2/3 majority to reconsider that. So given the circumstances, what we're going to do is to waive that provision of the bylaw, procedural bylaw, so that we can go back if necessary and revisit and see if votes have changed on an individual at the will of council. So with that being said, I'm going to again pass the chair because I think this motion should come departure should come from the mayor. I'm going to pass it to the deputy mayor to run the session.
Thank you, Mayor Saunderson, and through you to my colleagues and to those who are with us this evening. So a brief explanation has been given as to the rationale as to how we're going to proceed. And as chair, I'm going to ask that Mayor Saunderson introduce his motion, and then we will vote looking for a two-third requirement. So, Mayor Saunderson.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. And I have read the procedural bylaw, but I don't remember the provision. So I'm going to look to Clerk Almus if you can give me the specific provision, and then I will make my motion.
Grabbing the actual section number.
Okay, thank you. All right. So the motion will be that council, for the purposes of this item, which is item 6 on the agenda for our special meeting of Thursday, March 10th, 2022, that the provisions of the procedural bylaw, which I think are 4.23, relating to votes for reconsideration, be waived for the purposes of this process.
Thank you. That said, look for a seconder, Councillor Hamlin. For my colleagues, are there any questions before the vote? Seeing none, then I'll call the question. All those in the affirmative, and that's carried unanimously. Thank you. And back to you, Mayor Saunderson.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. So I'm going to open the floor for names. Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you. I'd like to nominate Chris Carrier.
Do we have a seconder? All right. And I will call the vote then. All in favor? All right. I think I got 6 votes there. Can I confirm that, please? All right. Well, thank you very much. That concludes the process. So Chris Carrier has been appointed by this council to fill the vacancy for the balance of this term. And I'm going to look to the clerk. I think for the purposes of tonight, we were not going to do the oath of office, but we need the confirmatory bylaw.
Sorry, Your Worship.
Yes, go ahead, please.
We can do the appointment bylaw, and then we'll do the oath of office and declaration of the acknowledgement of the code of conduct potentially at the next regular meeting or another time determined appropriate by the candidate.
All right. So the bylaw is section 9.1, and it reads that bylaw number 2022-13 being a bylaw to appoint Christopher Carrier to fill the vacancy of councillor for council of the Town of Collingwood for the remainder of the 2018-2022 term be enacted and passed this 10th day of March 2022. Can I get a seconder for that, please? Thank you. And I'm going to ask for a recorded vote on this, and I'll pass it over to Clerk Almus.
Thank you. A recorded vote has been requested. All those in favor, please raise your yes cards. Thank you. Carried unanimous.
Thank you. Item 10.1 will be deferred to a later date, and that brings us to item 11 on our agenda, which is the confirmatory bylaw, and it reads that bylaw number 2022-14 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the special council meeting of Council held March 10, 2022, be enacted and passed this 10th day of March, 2022. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Doherty, Deputy Mayor. All in favor? And before I ask for a motion to adjourn, I again want to thank each of our applicants for your time and effort in tonight's proceedings and for putting your names forward in this process. As indicated during the discussion, you provided excellent overviews tonight and excellent presentations, and you made our job very difficult, and it is a compliment to yourselves and our community, the level of interest and engagement that we have had. So I want to thank each of you for your time and effort, and wish you all the best. With that, I will look for a motion to adjourn. Councillor Jeffrey, all in favor? That is